What's going on, Alabama fans? This is Brandon, aka Fresh, COO of Touchdown Alabama. Before I drop this absolute fire on y'all, hit the like button, smash it as hard as you can. Do it right now because you're going to want to make sure you hear every last second of this video that I'm about to drop on y'all as it pertains to potential Alabama wide receiver transfer Jordan Addison. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Get this to 750 likes today, right now. All right, if you haven't done it, do it right now. All right, so Alabama is rumored to have been again in the business of picking up a potential wide receiver in the transfer portal. So far, Alabama has been able to obtain the services of Jermaine Burton, who has been able to be in the spring with Alabama, Tyler Harrell, who I've already done a video on, who recently committed to Alabama, and now has the opportunity, the possibility of stealing away the nation's top wide receiver. And that's not subjective. That's basically what, the voters voted this guy as the Fred Biletnikoff Award winner. Devontae Smith got this award. That's the nation's top receiver, Jordan Addison. So you're telling me that Nick Saban has the possibility of not only getting this pretty good signing class that he got with wide receivers. We talked about the ridiculous amount of speed that this class already has, but adding Jermaine Burton, who pretty productive with Georgia, Tyler Harrell, pretty productive with Louisville, but then going out and getting Jordan Addison, who has been rumored to be in play with USC and Alabama and some others, but it's more than likely going to come down to these two. I don't think any other school can compete with what USC and what Alabama can potentially offer Jordan Addison as it relates to potential NIL, if that is indeed what the reports are saying, is the potential of receiving some NIL compensation. So let's just run this down real quick, because in case you might be saying, oh, well, what about all the receivers that Alabama already has? Why are we going out and getting another receiver? Why is Alabama doing that? So if you as fans are thinking that, well, let me go ahead and tell you why. So I just mentioned two wide receivers, with Jermaine Burton, Tyler Harrell. Let's look at who Alabama currently has on the roster from last year, and let's just look at some of these numbers. So we just run this down. Let me explain as to why Nick Saban is not just shutting the door completely on what he already has. So I know you might be in the business of saying, oh, well, we got to develop the wide receivers that we currently have on the roster, and I'm not disputing that. But Nick Saban is in the win now business. Nick Saban is I'm looking for championships. I'm always going to be in the market for building up this team at the highest level and putting teams together that are going to compete for championships year in and year out. That's what Alabama is. That's the standard that I set. That's what Nick Saban and how Nick Saban operates. So if we look at the current receivers, let's just read some of these names. And there's a lot of J names. I was noticing that there's a lot of J's. So you have Jermaine Burton, JoJo Earl, Ja'Cory Brooks, Tyu Jones-Bell, Trayshawn Holden, Christian Leary, Brett Bolin, Sam Willoughby, Aaron Anderson, Kendrick Law, Jacoby Bullock, Jacoby Boykin. Sorry, I wrote this down. Excuse me if I'm messed up any of these names. Grant Krieger. I mentioned Tyler Harrell, Shaz Preston, Kobe Prentice, Isaiah Bond, and potentially a Jordan Addison. Now, a lot of those names you don't really recognize, and some of them you probably do if you follow recruiting, because those are some incoming freshmen who are expected to be pretty special in their own right. However, Nick Saban is always going to take the proven commodity. And right now, if you look at these numbers, let's read some numbers. So Jermaine Burton had 26 catches, 497 yards, 5 touchdowns. JoJo Earl, and we can just focus on the Alabama current returning Alabama guys, what their projection was last year. So we got 12 catches for JoJo Earl, albeit he did miss quite a few games due to an injury, 148 yards. Ja'Cory Brooks, 15 receptions, 192 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 catches for Tyu Jones-Bell for 16 yards. Trayshawn Holden, 21 catches, 239 yards, 1 touchdown. Christian Leary, 2 catches for 4 yards with a touchdown. And that's about it. So you're returning 4 touchdowns, and you're adding 11 touchdowns with Jermaine Burton and Tyler Harrell. But if you just look at the guys on the roster currently, there's not a whole lot to be excited about in terms of production. So if you're Nick Saban and you see Jordan Addison, let's just put these stats on the screen in case you need some actual proof. 100 receptions, 1,593 yards, 17 touchdowns. 1-7. And that's at Pitt. No disrespect, but if you have Bryce Young throwing you the football, you can expect, that you're going to get some pretty good production, especially if you have guys like Tyler Harrell, Jermaine Burton, and the other receivers that Alabama's going to have around them to take some pressure off of you. Now, you might be saying, well, if this guy wants a reported $3 million, well, what type of precedent is that going to set? Well, the precedent has already been set. Nick Saban warned about the transfer portal, and he's absolutely demolishing it. Doesn't seem like he was that high on the NIL because it said, well, in addition to the transfer portal, it's going to make it look like free agency. And then you're going to have all this where the recruiting for paying players basically is going to open up the floodgates. Well, you're going to have Alabama, who has some of the deepest pockets in all of college football, and allow them to go and openly recruit players with attracting money. And now they've pretty much built in this collective high tide traditions or whatever. Excuse me, I have to get the exact name of it, but the high tide NIL collective that Alabama has created, it's almost a no-brainer. And to make matters even more appealing, and this kind of brings even more interest, there's reports that came out recently that Bryce Young is working out with Jordan Addison in California. Don't think for one second that Nick Saban might not be putting a little something in Bryce Young's ear, say, hey, you might want to just tell him a little bit about this, because he can't directly talk to Addison, not to my knowledge. I had to get some clarification on that. But Bryce Young, what else does he need to say? Look, I'm probably going to be the number 1 or at worst number 2 pick in the NFL draft. I'm your quarterback, a reigning Heisman Trophy winner. I have a pretty good arm, if I might say so myself. I think I can get you the ball to make sure that you look pretty good. Not just getting this NIL money, but also getting the big bag in the 2023 NFL draft. Combine that with a Jermaine Burton, a Tyler Harrell, Christian Leary, Trayshawn Holden, and some of these other freshmen and the other receivers, JoJo Earl, that can also provide assistance and, again, take some heat off of Jordan Addison, who was more than likely going to see some double coverage this year. Maybe his numbers may or may not have been the same due to that at Pitt. So if you're Nick Saban, you better believe that you go after someone of this caliber. It may not, the optics as fans, you may not necessarily like how it looks that every time a wide receiver goes into the transfer portal that Nick Saban is going to be potentially fishing, looking for that. However, look at the facts. Look at the production that you're returning from last year. This is barely, I'm gonna do a very quick math. This is barely 50 total catches from your guys coming from the previous season. Barely 50 catches. Let me just do the quick math. You have 12, 15, that's 27, 29, 52 catches between the returning receivers that were returning from Alabama last year. Devontae Smith pretty much doubled that his last year in a shortened season. You see where I'm going with this. And that's not their fault. You had 2 pretty exceptional wide receivers in John Mechie and Jamison Williams, who got a lot of the the catches last year, but you have to make this move if you're Nick Saban. You have to go after someone of this caliber if you're trying to compete for another national championship, and you still have time to develop these guys for the next year. Now, you may lose another receiver. Maybe a Tyu Jones-Bell says, you know what, I've been waiting for the past 2+ years. I'm not going to wait again. Maybe another receiver decides that they don't want to wait and have someone take potential snaps away from them. So you may lose one or two. But guess what? You have, let me just count the true freshmen or the incoming freshmen that are coming in. Aaron Anderson, Kendrick Law, Shaz Preston, Kobe Prentice, Isaiah Bond. I mean, you still got 4, 5, 6 potential wide receivers that are freshmen, very young guys who, you can still mold and develop. So they have time. So the rich may have just gotten richer. We'll see what happens in the coming days with this whole situation. Things have just gotten very, very interesting. I already said it's game over if Alabama gets Tyler Harrell. You might as well just simulate the whole season if they end up getting Jordan Addison, because it's almost going to be not fair. And this is what Nick Saban tried to warn the college football world about. This is what you asked for. You want the transfer portal opening up for everybody. You want to start allowing the players to be paid with zero regulation. I expect that to change very soon. But with the potential of adding a player of the caliber of Jordan Addison, it's going to be quite an interesting 2022 season. And Alabama fans, if this happens, it's going to be something. I don't know what that something is going to be, but it's going to be something. All right, if you stayed to the end, again, pat yourself on the back. Drop a like, drop a comment below. Make sure you're following us and you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Follow us on our other social channels, Twitter, TD Alabama Mag. Like us on Facebook, Instagram, TD Alabama Mag. Make sure you go and get a subscription at touchdownalabama.com. Do that right now. And make sure, again, you leave a comment on this video. Download the app as well in the Apple Store and the Google Play Store. Again, this is Brandon, aka Fresh. I'm signing off. Thank you again.